I'm not gonna call it that. Come on, guys. Alright, so last night I was kicking up Shudder and finally decided to just watch one that I'd been putting off for a while, and that is the sequel to Train to Busan, Peninsula, also called Bando in the original title. Title in Korea. Now, Shudder has decided to label it stupidly. I mean, it's a sequel to Train to Busan. Fine. Now, you can have, like, a director present a film. There's plenty of Wes Craven presents yada yada yada. Fine. You can have a series presented. Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. Sure. Fine. But this one, for some reason, Shudder is labeled as Train to Busan presents Peninsula. How's the movie presenting another movie? I get that they're just trying to indicate that it's in the same continuity, but it's really just comes off as trying to capitalize on the first one unnecessarily. Especially since this one does stand on its own fairly well. In fact, any references to Train to Busan usually hurt this one because it's a very different animal. Yeah, it's set in the same continuity, sure, in that there's a zombie outbreak in South Korea. That's all where the similarities end. The characters in the first one do not come back. This is an entirely separate story. It's just set 4 years later, after the events. It's a standalone. So, for a lot of what I've been hearing before, and the reason I put off seeing this one so long, is I kept getting a lot of things where people didn't care for it, and that was because it wasn't as good as Train to Busan. Now, I was looking on here, and no, I have not yet reviewed Train to Busan. I've only seen Train to Busan once, and that was a while ago, so I'll get to re-watching that one, and probably soon. But I'm just going to stick to Peninsula for today. Now, Train to Busan, I will say, though, I did love. I thought it was the best zombie movie in recent memory. Peninsula, it's fine. It's above average even. I'll give it that. There were things that I did like about this one. The zombie effects when they were going toning down some of the CG things were good. I think the main thing is the flavor of the zombie movie. Train to Busan was tense. It was a bottle episode, pretty much, of you being stuck on a train full of zombies. Then there's tension, there's fear, you can see the distrust growing. Then it was kind of more akin to like a Night of the Living Dead sort of thing, where it's more of a tense atmosphere. While Peninsula is, I put closer to Land of the Dead. The zombies are kind of an accepted fact of life. There's a bit of a repressive government organization trying to maintain order, and there's some militant aspects to it, while the zombies are almost the background threat compared to the people. So this one's more of an action film, and it does deliver on the action scenes. I saw a lot of reviews referring to this as Train to Busan meets Fast and the Furious, and it's not that bad. It doesn't, well, not that it'd be bad, that could be fun, but it doesn't get that over the top. Yeah, there's a few car chases, especially towards the end. Yeah, they go out on the Fury Road. Fine. But more of it's goes into how a corrupt society can essentially, well, how people will devolve into some very twisted versions of themselves when trapped in this on the Korean Peninsula. Okay, so plot here. The first scenes kick off during the initial zombie outbreak as the soldier's trying to get his family out. However, on the boat, things go down, and it's now the only person he manages to save is his brother-in-law, losing his sister and niece. No, nephew. And now he's pretty much on disconnect from his brother-in-law because his brother-in-law thought he should have either died there or that the soldier should have tried harder to save them. Now, essentially, the Korean Peninsula has now been quarantined. No more refugees are coming out of there, and because the infected were starting to get out on boats, so all the countries around stopped taking in refugees. So whoever's there is stuck. However, that means everything else is stuck there too, and some local criminals are interested in sending a team in to collect a bunch of essentially a money shipment in American dollars that was left on a truck in the peninsula. They can go in and get that. It should just be laying there. Now, our main character is the soldier, and he's going in just because he's got nothing else. Nothing's going on. There's a lot of discrimination because people blame the Korean for this infection and outbreak. So there's a lot of tensions there. So he and his brother-in-law both get involved in this team to go in and get this money and get out. While they're going in, they get ambushed by essentially a military group that's there, and only our soldier friend escapes with the help of a couple young girls who were just able to distract the soldiers and the zombies and able to get him to safety back at their encampment. Now, earlier in the film, there was a young woman and her family that the soldier bypassed on the road. Yeah, it's his family. And so now that he might have a way to, essentially, if he can get the truck full of money, which now the military group has, not knowing what it is or anything about it, they just took it because it seemed to be something people were after. Then if the family stays with them, they can probably get on the boat and get out of and get off the peninsula, and he can rescue these people now, which he views as a bit of a redemption possibility for him because of his inability to save his own family. However, his brother-in-law has been taken by the military group, who essentially, they were the people who were trying to help get people rescued, but when help stopped coming, they essentially devolved to this tribalism of hunting people out there to bring in for sport. Do they ration their foods? They're essentially the whacked out military vigilantes now that police the area, mostly trying to capture people to use for sport, as well as swipe any valuables from them, mostly food. The sergeant there is one of the main villains, but the captain, who's the leader of the place, who's kind of gone insane, is now realized that what the truck is and is trying to engineer his own escape, but he's trying to sneak away with leaving the people behind because he knows some of these people are more dangerous than the zombies. So everyone's after the truck, everyone's trying to get out, and essentially there's a heist movie going on in the middle of this zombie apocalypse. And it's fun. It is. The action's good. There is some decent emotional stakes. You don't bond with the characters nearly as much as you do in Train to Busan. That's, I think, where a lot of people had some problems here. And yeah, the movie can get a bit over the top at times, but I'm okay with that. The ending is a bit polarizing. I'm not going to spoil the ending, but personally, I enjoyed it. I was kind of reading some of the writing on the walls as I was approaching. I thought, oh, this is going to get dark. And I was a little concerned about how dark it was going to go, because normally I'm okay with a drab ending. But I didn't like these characters enough that I didn't want that for them. So I was curious on how things were going to wrap up. I'm not going to spoil how that is, but the ending did not disappoint me. I will say that. I thought it was a fine ending. A bit melodramatic at times, sure. But after all this, I can forgive that. So overall, I did really enjoy this movie, and I did kind of go into this one with lower expectations because I kept hearing it wasn't as good as Train to Busan, but that is a very high bar. So the effects are good. It does rely a little too heavy on CG, particularly in the car chase scenes or when there's a mass of zombies. But for the most part, it isn't terrible. I will say there's a lot of this one's clearly more of an international thing going for it, since there's a lot of English spoken, and very much the characters will switch between Chinese and English. Not Chinese, Korean. I can't believe I said that. Well, actually, there's some Chinese in there too, because there's the Chinese, because a lot of the beginning takes place in Hong Kong, so I can be forgiven for that. But they'll also switch to English occasionally too. But I think it wasn't really necessary. But I will say the characters who spoke the English did actually a very good job of it. I've seen some very bad, particularly in animes, where the characters will try to speak English and it's clear they're just reading off a script and have no idea what they're saying. This one, you don't get that. You do have a feel they know what they're talking about at least. I'm gonna give this one probably. Actually, I did enjoy it. I'll give it a 7 MacGuffins. Uh, it ticked a lot of boxes for me, but like for me, Train to Busan was still one of the better zombie movies in recent memory. This one's okay. Really, it didn't need the connection. It's its own zombie movie by the same writer director. Writer and director, at least for the yeah, same writer director. But I was fine with that. So if they keep putting zombie movies in this continuity and leaving them unconnected, that's fine. But they should really stop trying to ride the hype train, pun intended. All right. Have a good day.